because I'm ruthlessly efficient with my time and I prioritize only the things that matter most. If you're really working, 7.5 hours, 8 hours in a day, and you use all that time for the most effective, efficient activities, you don't need to work 70, 80 hours a week. My 8 hours is the equivalent of someone else's 16 hours because they're not efficient. They don't plan their time and they say yes to busy work instead of strategic work. The reason why this is so important is because good morning, everyone. It's Ian Koniak. I'm filming this live from Ko Olina in Oahu. We're staying at the Disney Aulani Resort. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about why rest is the ultimate RGA. And we're going to go over how you can be an extremely high performer and also not have to grind and kill yourself along the way. And I'll give you all the details of what I do to make sure my energy is maximized every day and I can continue to maximize my efficiency during the day so I don't have to work long, crazy hours. So without further ado, here we go. We were at the mastermind recently and we talked about a new type of RGA. Typically, RGAs are revenue generating activity that advances pipeline and creates pipeline. But RGAs require you to have a lot of energy. RGAs require you to be extremely focused, extremely positive. You're prospecting, you're doing deep research. You have to use your brain. And that work in your brain actually is exhausting. So if you're going to work 5-6 hours a day on RGAs, most people work on average 2 to 3 hours on RGAs, and they spend the rest of the time on busy work or distractions or internal meetings or stuff that really doesn't matter. So the key to being successful is you got to spend about 5 to 6 hours on RGAs. But to do that, you actually have to have the right energy. So in order to recharge your battery, in order to actually make it so you have the right mindset and the right energy and the right spirit to do the hard RGAs, you actually have to be well rested. And so we called the ultimate RGA, the last RGA, rest generating activity. Rest generating activities actually enable you to do revenue generating activities. Because if you're stressed, if you're tired, if you're unmotivated, it's very hard to actually do RGAs during the day. So the 4 rest generating activities I do. Number 1 is I have 4 vacations a year. I take at least 4 weeks off per year. This vacation, we're in Hawaii. We were in San Diego a couple months ago, and we're going to be in Yellowstone over the summer. And then we have our Lake Arrowhead trip in the winter planned over the holidays. Those are really important because I always put those in the calendar well in advance, usually 6 months in advance, and then I have something to look forward to. That's one type of RGA is plan out your vacations. Whether or not you have money to go to Hawaii or not, or whether it's just a local Airbnb or whether it's a camping trip, it really doesn't matter. The point is that you're taking time off to recharge the battery, to not think about work, and to be able to come back refreshed. It also gives you a lot of motivation when you're leading up to the vacation date to really get everything done so you can feel like you're present on vacation. You don't have to stress when you're on vacation. So that's one. The second kind of RGA I do is actually sleeping and tracking my sleep. I use a Whoop and I track my sleep all the time. Last night I slept 90%. I slept 8.5 hours. It was a 90% score. But sleep tracking for me is everything. Whether you use an Apple Watch, whether you use an Oura Ring, or whether you use a Whoop, make sure you're getting at least 7 hours of sleep a night, which means that you're sleeping in bed 7.5 hours because you're not falling asleep right away and your sleep might get interrupted. So that means your time in bed is 7.5 hours. You also want to go to bed at a consistent bedtime. Okay. The next thing I do is I block my calendar where I have breaks during the day. So the third strategy is a calendar blocking. So what I do is I block off 12 to 1 and I take off 1 hour per day, okay, for rest in the middle of the day. And I find working in a sprint from 8:30 to 12 right? 3.5 hours of intense work. And then my brain's exhausted. I need a break to recharge. So during lunch, I'll block off an hour. Typically, I'll have lunch with my wife. We'll either go out or we'll make lunch, and then we might take a walk if we have time. But an hour seems to be the really optimal amount of time to take a break during the day. And again, don't do this if it's an excuse. Do it because it's a reward. Don't take time as an excuse not to work. Take time as a reward for how hard you're working. I think that's an important point. And the third thing, the final thing that I do, okay, so we talked about tracking sleep, planning vacations, taking an hour for lunch. The last thing I do is I set, it's really Parkinson's law. I've talked about this a lot, but I stop working at a set time. So I stop working at 5 o'clock on Mondays and Tuesdays so I can play with my son. Wednesday's a longer day for me. It's 7 o'clock because I have a men's group that I'm part of. Thursday is 6 o'clock, my normal schedule. And then Friday is 5 o'clock. So 3 days I'm stopping at 5 o'clock, one day at 6 and one day at 7. So I'm working around 40 hours per week. That's the total time I'm spending working. And again, I start at 8:30 in the day. I take a 12 to 1 break, and then I stop at 5. And the reason this is so important is because if you're blocking the time that you work and you say, I'm not going to work nights and weekends, which I don't work nights and weekends. The reason why this is so important is because it'll force you to be more efficient during the hours that you're working in the day. So if you know that you can work the night, what'll happen is you're going to be the way the brain works is if we give ourselves a deadline, we work more with more focus and more intensity as you get closer and closer to the deadline. So if my deadline I know is at 5 o'clock, I'm going to be working intensely from 1 to 5 because I don't want to be thinking about work when I'm done with work. I know that might sound crazy for some people. They're like, how can you stop at 5? And it's because I am ruthlessly efficient with my time and I prioritize only the things that matter most. I use a system called the 12-week year to block my time and make sure that I'm only working on the things that are going to be essential to success in my business. And that's something that I think, again, a lot of people don't do. They don't plan their day. They don't calendar block. If you're really working 7.5 hours, 8 hours in a day, and you use all that time for the most effective, efficient activities, you don't need to work 70, 80 hours a week. Okay. But the truth is when you work at that intensity where you're using every hour of the day, apart from the breaks, my 8 hours is the equivalent of someone else's 16 hours because they're not efficient. They don't plan their time and they say yes to busy work instead of strategic work. I'm only working on strategic things. If it's busy work, generally I'll delegate it or I just won't do it. I'm not checking emails. I'm not on Slack. I allocate time to do that at the end of the day for like 10, 15 minutes to clear it, but I'm not doing it throughout the day. So I don't get my focus interrupted when I'm doing deep work or revenue generating activities. So if this sounds too good to be true, if you're working nights, if you're working weekends, you are working inefficiently. You're working on the wrong things. You're saying yes to people pleasing. You're saying yes to internal meetings. You're saying yes to customer requests when they are not serious about helping you. You're spending too much time on small deals. There's just a lot of things that you're going to have to say no to if you're going to work 40 hours a week. And if you need help with this, if it's something that you want to be a top performer without sacrificing your family, without having to work nights and weekends, being able to take vacations, it requires being extremely efficient and focused with your time. So you can say, I'm not working nights or weekends. For me to be able to say that, I need to get everything done during the week and I need to let go of the rest. And if I don't get it done, it has to move to next week. If you don't have a system for doing this, if you struggle with this, if you are working nights and weekends, if you're not getting the results you want, it feels like you're killing yourself, you are definitely a good fit for our coaching programs. I'll leave a link up to here on how to be able to work with my team, set up a strategy call. That's what we talk about. We talk about being a top performer. We train you how to be a top performer without sacrificing your family and your personal life and your health. And I promise you, you can do it all. I'm Ian Koniak. I'll see you guys next week.